There is now a new podcast called The Girls Next Level. And this is a rewatch show. Rewatch shows are very popular right now. The Office just had one where Pam and Angela, I forget what the actresses' names are, but the actresses that played Pam and Angela watched old episodes of The Office together. And while they were watching, they talked about each episode. They talked about the behind the scenes. They talked about the funny things that happened. And it's like sitting there literally with the people who made the show, listening to all of the juicy information that you love to see. It's like blooper reels and extras and extras that are released on the DVD version of the series. This is what rewatch shows are. I think there's another really popular one. I haven't personally seen this one, from The Hills, which was another reality show that aired during my high school era. So the Girls Next Level are two of the girls that were part of the Girls Next Door. So I said there were three girls. There was Bridget, there was Holly, and there was Kendra. The Girls Next Level, the podcast, is Bridget and Holly, and they're rewatching these episodes and talking about the reality of what it was like and any behind the scenes details. And what's fascinating to me is these girls don't say they regret taking part in this. They're not exactly cognizant of what they're saying in the larger picture, because they don't go on the show and say, listen to me, young women, don't do what I did. Hugh Hefner was evil and Playboy is a lie and the sexual revolution actually harms women. It doesn't liberate us. They're not saying that. They're not saying that at all. But without saying that, that's what they're admitting. When they're talking about their experiences, that's all I could think of. All I could think of when I was listening to this show and reading about this show is, oh my goodness, they're admitting what Christians and conservatives have said about the sexual revolution, that it's a lie. They're admitting that that's true because that was their personal experience. So what exactly does the sexual revolution tell us? The sexual revolution tells us that morals are stifling, that monogamy is outdated, that you can't be truly free, you can't be truly liberated unless you are promiscuous, that there is no negative repercussions to casual sex, that it is simply a physical thing, it is not a spiritual thing or an emotional thing, and that if you want to have true agency over your body, then you have to make bad decisions and sleep with people that you might not want to sleep with, that you aren't committed to, that you aren't married to, that you don't love. This is what the sexual revolution tells us, and that none of this behavior has any negative ramifications. And so on that note, keeping that in mind, this is Holly's first, this is the first thing that Holly said about watching some of the first episodes.
The first three were kind of traumatic, I have to say. Like, I just hated watching myself. I looked at myself and I thought, she's a zombie.
Oh no.
And I know what made me a zombie, but not everybody else does. So we have to give you guys a prequel. We have to go back to when we first got involved with Playboy, before we even moved into the mansion, how we got there, what we went through. Because Bridget and I lived there for like 3.5 years before the cameras even started rolling. And there was a lot that went on. So when I see myself in this first episode, I know what conditioned me to be the way I was. And I feel like you guys need to know that before we jump in.
So the two words that stuck out at me in that part was when she said the first 3 episodes to rewatch were kind of traumatic. And the question would be, if you're looking at this through the lens of the sexual revolution, what was traumatic about this? You had the agency and you gave full consent to be a part of this show, and you were in this relationship of your own free will, and you were consenting to the sexual behavior that was going on. And she still says it was traumatic. So why was it traumatic? Well, it's traumatic even if you consent to it, because this is not what sex is supposed to be. She said she was a zombie. The other thing that stuck out at me when I heard this was the word groomer. We're not allowed to say the word groomer on Twitter now as it relates to teachers and other queer theory activists grooming our children to being trans. But this is essentially what's happening in this show too, is these young women who come from sometimes traumatic backgrounds are groomed into behaving like they're behaving in this situation. They're groomed into exposing themselves and thinking that this is where their value lies. This is what their worth is, that they are only worth what they are willing to do. And it's so heartbreaking, especially as a mom now, to see this and to see that the world will just eat up our children, will just devour our daughters and tell them that they are good for nothing other than being objectified